there will eventually be a time when we see the stock market start to struggle more. It'll start to have some bigger oscillations. And during that time when there's uncertainty, that's when we start to see gold rally up while the stock market trades sideways. And that's usually an early warning sign that the stock market is close to a collapse.
This week's specials with Miles Franklin Precious Metal Investments. 1,000-ounce silver bars for only $169 over spot per ounce, with 90-day free storage. And 2021 1-ounce silver Krugerrands for only $469 over spot. Call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty in Finance. And back with us today is Chris Vermeulen from thetechnicaltraders.com. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Elijah.
It's great to have you. And I really wanted to talk about silver because last time we had you on, we were talking about how a lot of people were accumulating silver. There's been a lot of silver deliveries off of the COMEX. And it seems like if we just look at the chart, there's been this constant accumulation of silver, and that it could break out to the upside. But we've seen some weakness in the last month. So your perspective, where we stand now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let me show you my charts, and we'll take a quick look at what the daily chart of silver is pointing to, which is this chart here. I mean, really, since last August, it's been a full year that silver has been trading in this really noisy range, very range bound. This can be seen as a consolidation, like a pause before the next major leg higher, or it can be seen as potentially an exhaustion phase, a top. If it breaks to the downside, it could mean silver is out of favor for a while. But when we zoom in on this shorter term chart here, if we were to just look at this most recent price action, last week we saw silver kind of break down, and the chart is still pointing to the downside. When we just look at this most recent sell-off down to this low using Fibonacci extension, and then we go up to this high, we can carry that forward to see where this downside momentum on silver should be, which is roughly $24 an ounce, which happens to be the last major low that silver made. It made it several other times in the past. As we kind of go back over here, it becomes a significant low and goes right through the middle of this oscillation. So there's going to be lots of support volume traded at that level. And when we look at this short-term daily chart, this little bear flag right here, we could do the same thing to figure out where this shorter-term pattern is pointing to. And we would take this start of this bear flag drop, this low, and based on the high that we saw more or less this morning, it's telling us somewhere around $23.77. So somewhere right around that $24 per ounce is a perfect measured move based on two different patterns. That's going to bring us down to that area. And if it gets down there, it should be a very strong support zone. And ideally, it would be nice if it actually got down there. And then we see some other things kind of fall into place, like the US dollar put in a reversal and top out. But right now, when we look at silver from an investor standpoint, it is in a major bull market. It's in a consolidation phase. And we just need to let it work through this consolidation before it potentially takes off and starts to head up to like $36 and $42, the next kind of upside targets there.
So long-term bullish, short-term bearish. Now, is it still, I know technically speaking, that kind of looks like a bull flag. Is that still what you'd call that?
Yeah. So this bull flag here, based on the COVID kind of crash there and up to these kind of highs, down to these lows, we can kind of project forward where this momentum should take us, which is roughly $33 would be the first level, and then we are going to potentially $40 would be the next level. So there's a lot of upside potential here, but it's definitely still in this really noisy base. It's a real tough trade when something's just drifting around, ping-ponging, especially when it's almost in the middle of the range. It's easier when something is near the lower end or the upper end. The odds are it's going to reverse, but when you're in the middle, it's really a 50-50 bet. And as I just showed you, the short-term charts are still pointing to lower prices down towards 23, and potentially it could come back down to this 22.50 area to test for another bottom down there. So definitely a little bit bearish on the short side. Longer term, still very bullish.
Now, if we looked at gold in the last few weeks, it has held up stronger than silver. So your perspective on where we're headed from here.
Yeah, gold's still in a big struggle. I mean, if we take a look at the monthly chart, look at the really big picture here. Gold is in a very strong bull phase. It's rallied up to new highs. It's consolidating. It really, if it can get traction and start to run, we're going to see a very big move to the upside. But when we drop down to the daily chart, we have some mixed signals. It's still kind of trending lower. If we look at the most recent price action, it has had a nice little rally. It's kind of pulling back. You could argue this might be a little bull flag. If the U.S. dollar puts a top in, which you and I can show you that in a minute, then we could very easily see gold continue to move higher in the near term. Over the next couple of weeks, we could see gold move somewhere up to the 1872 area, which would definitely get us back up to threaten to break above this level here. We need to really get above this 1900 area, this 19 kind of 20, and then I think we're off to the races for something much bigger. Obviously, this is a huge bull flag that's been forming. It feels as though the momentum has shifted to the upside, but we definitely lost some wind in the sails here when it broke down. The dollar had a big pop, but now that the dollar's at resistance, when the dollar does start to roll over, we're going to see precious metals, I think, really start to take the lead. And what's interesting is we see precious metals tend to become favorable and outperform the stock market just before the stock market puts in a major top. And so we're not seeing precious metals or miners yet kind of do that. So there's a few things setting up in the stock market for higher precious metals and gold miners as well. I could show you the U.S. dollar index here real quick if you want to see that.
That'd be fantastic. So kind of the key things to look at right now are a top in the US dollar and also in the stock market. If we can look at the US dollar right now.
Sure. Yeah. So if we just look at the US dollar, it's trading in this kind of pivot zone on this chart here. Right here, you could argue it's put in a W bottom. If it breaks to the upside here, we're going to actually see a very strong rally in the dollar. But and that'll be bearish on precious metals. We'll see them continue to consolidate. Silver will continue to trade sideways in that big pattern. Gold will probably pull back and continue to consolidate as well. But if the dollar here does roll over, we're going to see the dollar come back down. We're going to see precious metals, I think, start a very big rally. And then that's, I think, when we're going to start to see precious metals and miners potentially break to some new highs, really have a confirmed uptrend. There'll be lots of momentum. People will start to get on board. And if the US dollar breaks below this low down here, that's when we're going to see, I think, precious metals hit all-time highs again. And we're going to start that next major leg up where it'll be like $2,600 gold. We'll probably see $40 silver, and gold miners will pop and take off as well. So this is a really critical point for the US dollar, is this real pivot zone here. If it starts to extend higher, it's going to dampen precious metals for probably a few more months. As we can see here, it's rallied up for the last 1-2 months. If it does start to break out, it's definitely going to delay another quarter or so before it tops out. The next level of resistance for the dollar is going to be somewhere right across this area here, not the straightest line, but somewhere around this 25.50. If it breaks up there, that'll be the next area where if it starts to break down, that could be the spark of a new precious metals rally. So we just need to see what it's going to do here. And if it starts to come back down, we're going to see a really strong rally. Probably bring silver up to the highs that it's seen over the last year, bring gold back up to probably 2,000. And then if it does break below this level, that's when we're going to see gold, skyrocket way above 2,000 and silver is going to go much higher. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We just got to take it one bar at a time and see how the markets unfold.
No, when we do look at the stock market as well, because that's something you're keenly looking at as well to kind of be a indicator of where precious metals are heading. Where do we stand right now? It seems like we are at a all-time high again in the stock market.
Yeah, well, risk continues to go on. Last week, we saw a huge bout of panic selling in the stock market. It was on a Monday. We saw panic selling on the New York Stock Exchange, pretty much 27 shares hitting the bid. So more, the way I see it is like 27 people hitting the sell button and only one person was hitting the buy button. And the stock market, the SP 500 gapped down sharply to the 50-day moving average, huge panic. The volatility index spiked over 50% during that time over about a 2 or 3 day window from the lows. And so that really cleansed the market. And now money's piling back into the stock market. People are getting back into the risk on trades. And when money's flowing into the risk on trades, we tend to see the defensive risk off, which is gold, utilities, bonds kind of flounder a little bit. So right now, I think there's still upward momentum in the stock market. The dips are still being bought. There will eventually be a time when we see the stock market start to struggle more. It'll start to have some bigger oscillations. And during that time when there's uncertainty, that's when we start to see gold rally up while the stock market trades sideways. And that's usually an early warning sign that the stock market is close to a collapse, a bigger correction, a 5 or 10% correction. And we'll see gold and precious metals miners move higher. And we're starting to see a little bit of that. We have seen gold kind of flounder, but we've been seeing bonds take off to the upside, kind of outpacing the stock market. And so now we're just waiting to see when gold and silver and platinum are going to actually start to move up, because they're kind of the final straw just before the stock market collapses. We see money move into precious metals.
So the order here is probably we're going to see the precious metals rally first before we see the stock market roll over.
Yeah, we'll see the stock market trade sideways. Precious metals should start to outperform and keep moving up while the stock market is kind of undecided and people become nervous. We'll start to see chatter, and we'll see probably the volatility index start to rise a little bit, and we'll see bonds and precious metals start to move up.
Now, with respect to the other precious metals, I mean, many people are keenly interested, I am as well, in platinum and what the chart looks like, because there is a strong argument for platinum being under the price of gold right now, a lot of bullish fundamentals for platinum. I would like to learn, does the chart look bullish right now?
Yeah, so if we were to just draw a connecting trend line across these highs going all the way back to 2008, obviously we've got some pretty standout highs. Started to break through it. And you and I had talked earlier this year that there was this kind of line in the sand right around this 1,050 level. The daily chart shows it a little better, but you can see we got wicks here, right across here. This was a really significant level, and we saw December of last year close above that. So really, when you look at platinum, it has just started a bull flag, a bull market. It broke to the upside, and this is kind of its first pullback in pause. If we go to the daily chart, we can get a little bit better view of that. I'll just zoom out a little bit. And if we just look across this chart and I draw a horizontal line across this 1,050, 1,030 kind of area across here, this was a really significant level where it finally put in a major washout bottom, came back up, and then finally broke out. And you can see now, we've had the first run up, we had a pullback, we had a little bit of a bear flag here, and now we're coming back to test this breakout area. So this is a really critical level for platinum. This looks and feels like it's trying to maybe put in a bottom here. This is sometimes what's called a kiss goodbye. So for example, when you get a breakout to the upside, price will work itself back, it'll come back and it'll kiss that breakout zone. And then it'll take off for the second half of the move. So this could be looked at as potentially a big bull flag happening. And if we were to use Fibonacci extension to get an idea of where this momentum is, we've got momentum pointing to roughly $1,500 for platinum. And that would most likely take, to the end of this year to get there. This is, a quarter, is quite a few months. So it's probably going to take several months to work itself back up there. 618, which is a major resistance area, it happens to also be this previous high. So if price runs up, pulls back for a little bit there, and then breaks to the upside, that's a really good sign. We want to see price pause at the 618. It means the measurement, the momentum is accurate. And if it does that, it starts to break above it, then we're going to go up to this 1,500 level. Which is going to be a really nice level for platinum. It's still going to be under gold. It is weird to think that platinum, is cheaper than gold because it used to be such the extreme, but it is, seems like it's an undervalued metal.
Do you see it getting back above gold's price?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. When I look at this chart pattern, it doesn't have the type of chart pattern that gold has. It just doesn't feel like it could take off. Now, it's tough to say. This chart pattern isn't pointing to a massive move higher. It's pointing to 1,500, and then we're going to have to recalibrate and see. Whereas gold has got this massive multi-year bull flag pattern, points to dramatically higher prices. But the market always has this weird way of a metal moving or something moving that you least expect, right? And so we'll have to see how this takes action. If this starts to break out above 1330, then 1522 is the next stop. And if it creates a bull flag there, it's going to create a much higher level back up to 2000. That'll probably be roughly the next target, which will bring it back to where gold is right now. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I think gold and silver are more of the place to be. I'm just not really seeing the movement in platinum. But so there's a bunch of different ways you could play the precious metals market. You could have a basket of different metals. Obviously, you could have physical bars or rounds of platinum, gold, silver, palladium. You can have all those things because you never know which one is actually going to take off. And the market has a funny way of the one you least expect taking off. For example, most people don't really follow palladium at all. And if you look at palladium, I mean, it's had this huge run to the upside. It's one that really not many people focus on. And I kind of feel like platinum is kind of in that league right now. It doesn't seem that exciting. But the thing is, we've got major global concerns going on to me that are more heavily weighted that gold and silver are going to do really well. I think palladium's had its time. I think gold and silver are going to be the focus going forward. And I think palladium had a lot to do with some industrial use as well for the spike in price, which I think things are kind of coming to an end there.
Definitely. I think palladium is such a good example of what you just mentioned, how kind of the one you don't expect can really make a move. But before we let you go, I did want to touch on the cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, because it has been rallying recently. Bitcoin has been rallying recently. It was, around the $30,000 level. It's making its way back up to 40,000. Your perspective where we are there?
Yeah. So Bitcoin had this huge drop, kind of topped out, had a breakdown, and it's been in this kind of phase where it's trying to figure out if it's going to put in a bottom or not. And more or less, it came down. It did get below 30,000 again for another day, popped back above it. Today, it's up 18%, and it's going to work itself up. Now, the way I like to follow it, just like when it put in a top, is I like to look at previous highs or previous lows to get a feel of momentum. And if I was to just zoom in on this chart a little bit more, what I like to do is when we talked about this topping phase, it looked like it was about to collapse. Well, eventually, when it did collapse, it broke two previous lows. So we have a low here, and then we have a significant low over here, and it broke that one as well. And the way I see it is when price breaks through two support levels, that means the momentum has shifted. A lot of damage has been done to the chart. It can break one and recover. That would be considered kind of like an ABC retrace. But when it breaks two previous pivot lows, and then especially when it really struggles to get traction and regain those highs, it's pointing to lower prices. And so what we're seeing this week with Bitcoin, we got a huge pop. I think it's on some news, but we have broken the first previous high on Bitcoin. The second one is a really significant line in the sand right across this top area here, that if it breaks this one as well, which is roughly 42,000, if it breaks above that, then I think we're going to see a big run up to around 52,000 very quickly. Now, this is a news-based kind of pop. There's some action going on. So who knows? This could fizzle out. It could trade in a big range here for a while still. We need to see which way it's going to break out of this consolidation phase. If it breaks up, it's going to be back into an uptrend. 52,000 is the next target. If it breaks down, 22,000 is the next target, potentially with a washout low around 11 or 12,000. So it's going to be interesting to see where Bitcoin goes. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement today in it, and we'll see where it is at the end of the week, and if this is a one-day wonder or if it's going to have some legs behind it, break through this, and then everyone chase it and drive the price back up again. So it's going to be interesting.
All right. Well, Chris Vermeulen, thank you so much for your time today. Before we let you go, did you want to share with the viewers any last thoughts you had and where people can find you online?
Sure, yeah. You can find me online at thetechnicaltraders.com. And every morning I walk through the charts just like what you and I did, generally on the daily chart. And I cover gold, silver, the indexes, miners, precious metals, individual sectors, different things like that. And of course, any trades that I do, I share with followers. So it's pretty educational, and you can kind of trade alongside me. more or less, if you're looking at the markets right now, I mean, we're still in a bull market, and you got to be long equities at this point. And precious metals will have their time to shine, but I think there's still a little bit more work to be done. It could take a few more weeks or a couple more months for precious metals to come to life.
All right, and if people would like to learn more about these interviews, keep seeing the interviews we're doing with you and all the other guests, go to libertyandfinance.com and sign up for our free newsletter. Once again, Chris, thank you so much for your time, and God bless.
Thanks, Elijah. Take care.
This week's specials with Miles Franklin Precious Metal Investments. 1,000-ounce silver bars for only $169 over spot per ounce, with 90-day free storage. And 2021 1-ounce silver Krugerrands for only $469 over spot. Call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.